Hello. All right. So last time we finished, we made our little example with our moving spheres, and now we're going to talk about computer players or NPCs or bad guys, if you will. So right now we have our scene. We can play it, and it'll work with a client or not. And we can move our sphere around, and we have some walls. So this is good. So what do we do about a computer player now? It's like, so the player is only one half the equation. We also want to have some sort of enemies or something moving around the screen. How are we going to do that? So this is actually easier than the player. First thing we'll do is we'll make another folder. We'll call it enemies. We'll make a new material. I'm going to be a little bit lazy here with my folder structure. We'll say we'll make a new material. Call it red. And then we'll set it to be red. For lazy. Then we'll say create a folder for prefab. I know, I should make a folder called material, but it's one material. And we'll have scripts. So we are going to have to, so since we want the enemy to be synced, like it wouldn't make sense to have an enemy in a different location on one client versus another, we are going to have another network behavior. So we'll call this enemy controller. And it's going to be a network behavior. Now in this case, there is going to be no need to check for local player. The server is going to be responsible for all processing of the enemy players or NPCs for that matter. So this is actually fairly easy. The only time you would want to do is local player or is client is if there was some sort of graphical component like a particle effect or something that you wanted to generate on the client side only, and that would be the only time you would really have a client code on this part. So this is actually fairly easy to convert from a single player game. So we start with Unity networking, we inherit network behavior. I would also recommend using a coroutine for slow update, and the reason is again, this is going to fall to the responsibility of the server to run this. So we want to minimize how much CPU power we're using as much as possible. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a server tag. Now the server tag basically means this can only be run by the server. Once again here, I am going to get, in fact, everything's just going to be server right now for us. So if is server, we are going to have a rigid body. We're going to find the rigid body. And then we're going to start the coroutine if we are in the server. And basically here we'll do while true. And here we'll do wait or yield return new wait for seconds. We'll say 0.08 because we don't need quite the same speed. So here we have our basic format. Nice thing is everything will be inside here, will be all the logic. So I want to make something simple because I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to make an AI or something. So what we'll do is we'll make the bad guy patrol back and forth. So what we're going to do, we'll say direction equals won't work. Do I want to do it that way or? I don't know if we. Yeah. No. Let's see. No, we're not going to do that. We'll make it even easier. We'll have a public Boolean variable up here. Switch will equal false. I'm not sure why. Oh, I think it was a keyword. Sorry. We'll call it patrol. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to have another coroutine that's just going to invert this every, or set this true every X time, every say or every 2 seconds. So we will have another coroutine here. You do want to be careful with having a bunch of coroutines, but in this particular case it'll be okay because it's such a expansive time. We should not be challenging the server. So public, i.e. numerator toggle. And we're going to have while true. And we're going to do wait for seconds 5, or I'll do 3. And then we're going to say yield return new wait for seconds 3. And then we're going to say patrol equals true. So for every 3 seconds, this will be set to true. And we're going to start this coroutine right here. So we're going to get the rigid body, start the slow update, and then start the coroutine. The coroutine is just going to set patrol to true every 3 seconds. And then the update itself is going to simply look and see if patrol is set. Then we're going to take my rig.velocity equals new vector 3. Actually, no, we don't do that because it's going to be single dimensional. So we'll do times equal -1. So we'll just reverse the velocity. And then we're going to set patrol to false. So I'm just going to reverse the direction it's going and then set patrol to false and wait for us to set to true, and then I switch the direction again. So it's a really simple code. So we're going to save this real quick. Go back to Unity. And we'll make like a new enemy. We'll see what we use for enemies. Cylinder. How's a cylinder look in 2D? Or not? Kind of a big square. You know what? We'll just do it. We'll just do a square, and we'll just make it smaller than the object. So we'll do a cube, and we'll make the scale 0.5. Now, here we're going to add our enemy controller to it. And once again, we'll have our network ID. And again, we're not going to set either of these two. It's tempting to set server only, but we don't want to set server only because we want this to be seen on the clients. We're also going to add a network, oops, not XP or XR, network transform. And we're going to sync, and we also need a rigid body. Rigid body, we are not going to allow any rotation. We're not going to use gravity, and we will use interpolate. We are going to sync the rigid body 3D. It's important you set that. And then we are not going to have any rotation access, and we can drop this a little bit if we want, and we'll make this 0.5. Oh, and then we are, yeah, so we should be good there. That should be acceptable. So this will set up. This will keep track of the player information, where they're at, or where the enemy's at. And notice everything here is going to be, that's because I set the wrong one. Everything here is going to be controlled by the server. So you can take basically any of your enemy code per se and just wrap it in is server, and then the server will deal with it. And that's what's nice. Any variables I have, say I want to display a UI like the enemy's health, I could have sync vars up here, and the health bar would just mimic whatever the sync var was set to by the server. So the enemies are actually quite easy. On one of the assignments, you're going to have to do a nav mesh. All the nav mesh controllers are going to be set in slow update, or whenever you hit a goal, and they're going to have to be wrapped inside is if server. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. So everything on the enemy side is going to be from the server. So, excuse me. I have a normal collider. I might make this a trigger collider a little bit later, but we'll see. So what I'm going to do now is I'll make this a prefab. I call it enemy. Oh, and I forgot I have and I'll put in prefab. Then we can delete our enemy. Now, if I'm not spawning the enemy, like say I want the enemy to be automatically inside. Why is this enemy? Hold on. That's 3D, right? Or sync rigid body 3D. Okay. So assuming I'm not spawning this enemy dynamically, but I just have it in the scene, I do not have to worry about adding it to the list. So I can just go click on the scene, and I'm going to go to my prefab, and I can add a couple of these enemies, making sure my Z is 0, which it should be. And the other thing I forgot is I forgot to set the initial movement. So we'll save the scene, save the project, go back to the other scene, and now I have to set the initial movement. So we'll go up to here after we get the rigid body, and we're on the server. We'll just set my rig dot velocity equal to new vector 3, and we'll say 1.5 f00. So it'll just move to the right at 1.5. And then after the sets, it should reverse. So now that we run it, land host, we'll see our guys are moving, and hopefully at 3 seconds there, they start moving back. So now we have bad guys patrolling back and forth. They don't actually do anything to us yet, but it's worthwhile. We now have NPCs. Now, I don't have to worry about if I have a client, it should be synced and should work as fine. Again, everything here for the NPCs or the enemies are going to be done on the server side. So you don't even have to really think about where it's happening at. As long as you have a network transform, and again, if you're, say, you have like the enemy health bar, that can just mimic a sync var that the server controls. So we'll make this the host. Once again, it's working. Make this the client, and now you see that it is still working. We have our enemies moving back and forth, and they are synced together as you would expect. So, and once I stop the velocity, the script doesn't work anymore, so it's a little bit of an error on the part of the script, but you get the idea. I can change the enemy's directions. That's neat. So the next thing we want to do is now we want to do a little bit of damage. So here is where the sync vars start playing a major part, and we have to remember what is a game state and what's not. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if we collide with a player, then we want to do something. So we're going to do public void on collision enter. And what we'll do is we'll give the players a tag so we can identify them. We'll say prefab, no, our player, and we'll say player. So we give it the player tag. So we say if collision dot game object dot tag is equal to player, then we're going to have to access the other game object's script, the network player, and subtract one, also subtract 2 from their health. So we'll have to say something like collision dot game object dot get component network player dot HP minus equal 2. Now, there's a problem. This is a sync var. This can only be done on the server. So inside your collisions, you have to make sure you have if is server if it's going to be changing a game state. So now this will only happen if I run to a server. And the other thing I want to do is I want to destroy the enemy once it hits you, which I know is kind of a strange thing to do for this style of a game, but I don't want to just continuously lose health. So we'll do network server dot destroy this dot game object. Now, where did I come up with that? So if you are the server, you have a static class called network server that you can do various functions. One's destroy, another one's spawn. So destroy this will destroy the game object, this game object actually, and it will deal with all the it'll synchronize it out of the clients and the host. So we'll save this, and then we'll go back to our game, and I'm going to make the client, so build and run. I'm going to make the editor the client. I'll explain why in a moment. So I run the server here. Now remember, the server is the only one that's changing the variable HP. HP is a sync var. So hypothetically, if this happens, let's see if it works. Okay, that's dead. So this should now have 8 health. But remember, it's only being changed on the server. So assuming the sync var works, it should work on the client. The only trick here is I've connected afterwards. But we'll go click on the online scene, click on the network player clone, and we can see that our HP is in fact 8. So it did work on, update the client when I connected to the game. So that's the value of a sync var. I didn't have to send a command, I didn't send an RPC, it just automatically updated. My HP is 10. So again, it's only happening on the server. This is where the HP is being subtracted. But I'll go ahead and run into an enemy by accident. And now I have 8. So it is updating on mine. So that's the value of a sync var, is it will update automatically, assuming it's a primitive or a game object that has a net ID and is in fact instantiated. So now I'm at 4. So you see I've been hit 3 times. So it is updating, and this is very crucial that you start keeping track of which variables are in fact game state variables and which variables are in fact not necessary to sync var. It's actually not as many as you would think, and we'll talk about why this is, and we'll talk like things like shoot timers and such. There's easier ways of making it work out to try to minimize your code. So anyway, this is it for this section. We've created our heroes. We can move around, and we've also created bad guys that will do damage to us. Not much of a game, but it's a start. So please, once again, make sure you have NPCs and bad guys moving around and synchronized. And then we're going to move on to something a little bit different in the future. The next step is to separate the network player and the network piece. So the network player is going to become this abstract, empty object that you don't see, and this thing here is going to become a game piece, which can be destroyed. We haven't talked about how to destroy it yet. The problem right now is if I destroy this game piece, I will in fact lose my connection or lose my ability to communicate to the server. I will not lose my connection, but I will lose my ability to communicate to the server, and that's really bad. So that's what we're going to be doing next. Okay, thanks for watching, and please, again, if you missed something, please rewind the video, pause it, make sure you understand what's happening. I will talk to you next time.